Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to bring you my January wrap up. This month I read 11 books and 2,572 pages. I had an absolutely fantastic reading month, probably one of the best that I can remember for a long time. Perhaps starting my booktube channel has kind of spurred me on to read more things, but also I've been experimenting with reading more than one book at a time, which I think is really helping me, especially when it comes to reading classics and non-fiction, because I often find those quite difficult to get through. So if I'm reading something else at the same time, then I'm more likely to kind of, I'm dipping in and out of those, and therefore they're not becoming too heavy for me, I suppose. So I'm going to go through what I read this month. I'm going to start with a book that I finished right at the end of December last year. I didn't include this in my December wrap up because when I filmed it kind of a couple of days before the end of December, and I didn't think that I was going to finish this book before the end of the year. And then I finished it with about 5 hours to go before the clock struck midnight and we celebrated the new year. And that book is Rita Sepetys' Out of the Easy. This is the second book that she published, and it's the last one that I've read, so I've read all of her books now. And this is a little bit different from the other two in the fact that it is set in New Orleans in the 1950s, I think, and it focuses around a girl growing up. Her mother is a prostitute, and people in the town that she lives in think that she's going to follow in her mother's footsteps and lead that kind of life, but she doesn't want to lead that kind of life. She's a really avid reader and she really wants to go to college, and it kind of follows her story with trying to achieve those goals. It was absolutely fantastic. I cried a couple of times towards the end. I'm not much of a crier when it comes to books. I can really easily cry watching a film or a TV programme or even a segment on the news or something like that, but it takes a lot for me to cry with a book, and there are a couple of really emotional moments towards the end of this when they couldn't help but cry. Rita Sepetys' writing beautiful as always. I will continue to recommend all of her books, and I saw a tweet that she put out on Twitter this week talking about the book that she was currently writing and how can I describe this particular object, and it got me really excited because I thought, oh, she's working on something new and I can't wait to pick it up. So I gave that 5 stars, couldn't give it any less. Then I moved on to the first book that I read in January, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I picked this up because of my reading goal that I wanted to read at least 6 classics this year. And I really like these Wordsworth Classic editions. They're quite easy. I like the font style, I like the way that the book is put together and stuff like that. I mean, it's not the most beautiful edition and it cost me I think about £2, but that's not the point. I think it matters what kind of edition you pick up of a classic, if you're going to enjoy it or not. And I didn't read the introduction because I think sometimes with a classic it gives away what it's going to be about, and spoilers, so I don't want to be spoiled. Although, with this particular book, because it's ingrained in our culture, this story, so I did know some things about it already, but I skipped over the introduction and didn't read it until I finished it. But I quite like this. So if you don't know what this is about, this follows the story of Dorian Gray, who is friends with a painter, and this painter paints a portrait of him. So Basil, the painter who paints this portrait, he's absolutely obsessed with Dorian Gray. He thinks he's a great guy. He, revels in his handsomeness or beauty or whatever you call it. And so those feelings are then poured into the portrait that he paints of Dorian Gray. So Dorian Gray takes this portrait home, but before he does, he meets this man called Lord Henry, and Lord Henry kind of, he becomes friends with him while Basil is painting this portrait of him. And then he takes the portrait home, and Lord Henry starts kind of taking him down this sordid sort of path into a life of wrongdoings, I suppose. but something starts happening to the portrait. It starts changing when Dorian Gray does things that are wrong, and it turns out that the portrait is sucking up all of his wrongdoing and aging while he stays the same, and then the story kind of goes on from there. I really like this. I love Wilde's writing style. I thought there were some really funny moments in this, and there's a lot of a sort of social commentary on life at the time that he was writing. I remember reading The Importance of Being Earnest, or we studied it as a play at A level, and there were sort of lots of funny quips in that. I don't remember it in depth, and so it would be worth rereading that later. But yeah, that was a good classic for me to pick up as my first one in 2017. I ended up giving that one 4 stars. Then I read my first 5-star book of the year, and that was Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. Now, I've done a full review on this, which I'll link down below, so you can go and watch that to hear my thoughts in a bit more detail. But I really liked this. I've heard so many people talk about this and say that it's absolutely fantastic. And I've had it sitting on my shelf for a couple of years, so I thought, alright, I'll pick it up at the beginning of 2017 and see what all the fuss is about. This follows the story of Agnes, who has been convicted of murdering her master and one of his friends, along with 2 other people, and she is sent to live with a family in the town where she grew up, and in fact she grew up on or worked on this farm when she was younger as well. And it's just about us getting to know her character and what happened with the murders, and yeah, it's just fabulous. The setting is fabulous, the characterisation is fabulous, the writing is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I ended up giving this 5 stars. So like I said, I'll link my review down below and you can go and hear my thoughts in a little bit more detail on that one. Then I picked up Paulo Coelho's, yeah, I've pronounced that totally wrong, The Alchemist. I bought this in a charity shop last year at some point, because you always hear about this as being, this is a modern classic, as it were, I think, or, lots of people talk about this as being one of his best novels. Yeah, I mean, it was alright. It tells the story of a boy who's a shepherd, and he meets somebody one day who tells him that he should go and look for some treasure in Egypt around the pyramids. And so he starts off on this journey. So it's sort of a little bit like a fable, I suppose. It's not that long at all, and it's kind of really big print. So I got through it really quickly. But there are, yeah, I mean, the first time when I put this down, I gave it 4 stars. And then I thought about it over the next couple of weeks and things, and yeah, I put it down to 3 stars in the end. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was a nice story. I got where the writer was coming from in terms of what message he wanted to give and things like that. But I felt like the message wasn't hidden. You didn't have to do a lot of working out to get to it. I know that's a bit of a weird criticism to make, but I found it kind of shoved down your throat a little bit. Yeah, so it was alright, so 3 stars. Then I've got my next 5-star read of the month, and that is I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. Again, I've done a full review of this on my channel, so I'll link that video down below so you can go and hear more of my in-depth thoughts on it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, a non-fiction book documenting Malala's life, what happened to her when she was in Pakistan, how she grew up, the shooting, life in Britain, that sort of thing. It's such an important read, especially considering the kind of time that we're in now, and it taught me an awful lot and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, that was a 5 stars. Then, as you will have seen in my January book haul, which I posted last week, and if you haven't watched that then I'll link that down below as well. I bought Sarah Perry's The Essex Serpent because, it was on lots of people's 2016 list and, best of, and it was the Waterstones book of the year last year as well, so I thought I've got to pick that up. So I didn't realise at the time, but I had on my shelf Sarah Perry's debut novel, So as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, I'll read that one first, and then I'll read The Essex Serpent afterwards, so I can sort of see how her writing has progressed. And that is After Me Comes the Flood. This is how to describe this is really hard to describe. It's a bit of a surrealist novel about the idea of mental health. So it follows this one character who sets off on a journey to visit his brother. Halfway there, I think his car runs out of petrol, so he gets out of the car and walks to this house that's nearby. But when he knocks on the door, he gets kind of sucked in. He can't tell them what he needs, and they assume that he's somebody else who they've been expecting. So they let him into the house. They give him a room to stay in, and he kind of stays there for a little while. And yeah, it's very surreal. I kind of got the point of it, but kind of didn't at the same time. I thought some of the writing was good, but I don't think this is the kind of book for me. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. I'd be interested to know if any of you guys have read it and what you thought of it. Yeah, because I think I'm still trying to wrap my head around what this was all about, really. Yeah, so 3-star read. Next, I picked up a copy of Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This was a library book, so I put a picture of it up here. I tried the first few pages of this graphic novel in my Try a Graphic Novel tag video, which I'll link down below. Really ended up quite liking it, so I finished it off. I said in that video that I thought it was kind of aimed more at a YA audience. After having read the stories, I would say probably not, unless those particular young readers don't mind being scared quite a lot, because some of the stories were quite horrific. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of horror as a genre. Don't read an awful lot of it. Hate horror films. Just don't like the idea of being scared. I just don't get how that's an enjoyable experience. So, I mean, I thought this was quite good. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. Yeah, it was a nice kind of graphic novel with 5 short stories in it. Yeah, but definitely not for a YA audience or a younger audience. Nah. Then I picked up Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. Again, I've taken this back to the library now, so I'll link a picture of it up here. Again, this was in my Try a Graphic Novel video, and I gave this one 4 stars in the end. It continued to make me laugh. I continued to be a fan of the artwork, and I continued to be really involved in the story. So I don't think I'd buy this series, just because I think I prefer collecting novels than graphic novels. So I don't think I'd buy it, but I think if I can borrow it from my library, then I would be interested in continuing on with the series, or perhaps buying it second hand and then selling it on again. So I'm interested in picking up the second one. Yeah, I thought it was a good story. After that, I've got my last 5-star read of the month, and that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And again, this was in my January book haul. It's in this absolutely beautiful vintage modern classics edition. Or is it vintage or is it Virago? No, it's Virago modern classics edition. Yeah, so really nice version of it. I had read this about 10 years ago, but when I picked it up again, I really didn't remember an awful lot of it at all. Didn't remember the ending whatsoever. I think I kind of vaguely remembered about some of the characters and the setting and the way that Manderley was described and things like that. But that's about it. So actually it was like approaching it for the first time, really. This tells the story of an unnamed Mrs. De Winter. At the beginning of the book, she's unmarried and she is kind of like a companion for an older lady, and they meet Mr. De Winter, Maxim De Winter, while they're away in Monte Carlo, and this unnamed main character and Maxim, they spend some time together while the elderly lady is ill, and he ends up asking her to marry him, and he takes her back to Manderley once he has married her. And Manderley is a very sort of gothic, eerie place to be. She meets Mrs. Danvers, who clearly doesn't like her, and then the story kind of goes from there as she's kind of trying to adapt to living at Manderley and things like that. I really enjoyed this. I got a bit frustrated at times with the main character in terms of the fact that she was quite placid, and she seemed to just kind of go along with things without actually knowing the kind of, or thinking through her decisions and what was going on and things like that. But I think you were supposed to be frustrated with her. And I think at times she reminded me of a little bit of a younger me. When I was, you know, perhaps in my early 20s, I made some decisions that were, you know, you just kind of go along with things sometimes, or I certainly did anyway. And so she reminded me of myself a little bit. And I suppose I was frustrated with her because I often look back at decisions that I made in my early 20s and I'm frustrated with myself. So, but yeah, the writing in this is absolutely beautiful. I'm really looking forward to picking up more stuff by Daphne du Maurier. I saw Jamaica in this kind of edition in Waterstone, so I might pick that up next. But yeah, this was fabulous. If you haven't read Rebecca, then you need to. Next I picked up Warm Bodies by Isaac Mariam. I picked this up because Lorna from Suddenly Lorna, I'll link her channel down below, she put a tweet out saying that she wanted to reread this before the second book came out. I think it's coming out very soon, or it's out already, so the sequel to this. And she said, I want to reread it, does anybody want to do a buddy read with me? So I said, oh yeah, I'd like to. The only thing I knew about it was I'd watched the trailer for the film a few years ago, so and I had some vague memories of kind of what the trailer was talking about, but that was it really. This is a zombie novel following a character called R, who is a zombie, who meets a girl called Julie. She's a human, a person, not a zombie, and it's about how, yeah, he's not your average zombie. He starts to realise that he has these feelings and these motivations that are different. You know, he's conscious, as it were, of his decisions, and it's about kind of how his relationship with Julie developed. So it's a bit of a love story, but it's also a very philosophical book. It makes you question what you're doing with your life. It makes you question the decisions that we're making as people on this planet. Yeah, and I was really surprised by it. It's not your typical zombie novel. I wouldn't pick this up if it was just going to be about, you know, eating people and that sort of thing. That just doesn't interest me. It doesn't interest me to watch a zombie film. It's just not my kind of thing. But this was really, really good. I've done a full review of this on my blog, which I will link down below. So if you want to hear a few more of my thoughts on it, you can go and give that a read. But I ended up giving that 4 stars. I quite enjoyed it. So book number 10 this month was Motorcycle Diaries by Che Guevara. So this is another library book, so I'll link it up here. I picked this up for my continents challenge. So one of my reading goals this year is to read a book, at least one book from each of the 6 continents that don't include Europe, to kind of broaden my reading horizons. So this one is set in Central and South America, and he kind of travels between lots of different countries in South America, so it's perfect for that. Yeah, I was expecting a bit more from it. In the end, it seemed to be more of, you know, this is how we got from this place to this place, and this is where we slept, and this is how we got food, and rather than spending more time kind of describing the places that he was in. And I was expecting it to be kind of more, yeah, that. So I didn't enjoy this one as much as I was expecting to. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars. Yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment really. And then the last book that I picked up this month was my 3rd classic for the year, so I'm actually already halfway through my classics goal, which is fabulous, and that is Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. This is one of the Penguin Little Black Classics that they released, and this is 3 short stories by her, and the first one is The Yellow Wallpaper. And they focus around the idea of gender roles and of mental health. So for example, The Yellow Wallpaper focuses around a woman who is having some mental health issues, and her husband takes her to this kind of country house that's in the middle of nowhere, and their bedroom is, I think, on the top floor of this house, and he kind of basically, he's a doctor, and he kind of basically says that she has to stay in this room, and it's about how her mental health kind of deteriorates, but also how he's very actually quite dismissive of how ill she is, and it's that kind of idea of people at this particular time not knowing very much about how to deal with mental health, you know, or not being very aware of the fact that it existed. So I quite liked it. It was quite kind of gothic at times, but they were very short stories. They were sort of 20 pages each or something like that, and I'm not really a big fan of short stories. They don't interest me as much as full-length novels, I think, because I can't get into them as much, and you know, you don't get the depth of characterisation, I don't think, anyway. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So there you have it. They were all of the 11 things that I read this month. Have you read any of these? What are your thoughts on them? I'd love to have a chat with you in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.